Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty Roundtable Radio Talk Show.
All right, happy to have you along, my fellow Americans. Sam Bushman live on your radio. Hard-hitting news the networks refuse to use, no doubt, continues now. This is the broadcast for April the 18th in the year of our Lord 2025. This is a freedom-loving, faith-filled, we're taking America back, one heart, one mind, one issue at a time Friday. 3 people in the round table, yours truly, Dr. Scott Bradley, freedomsrisingsun.com. Check out his award-winning, incredible weekly webinars, Q&As on the Constitution, and more. And check out his incredible collegiate series, To Preserve the Nation, all available at freedomsrisingsun.com. It is a freedom-loving, fantastic Friday, which means every Friday should be a day of hope and compassion. Like Good Friday, the promise of pardons and releases should be happening for prisoners. We got to turn every Friday into that. It would be like Release Political Prisoner Friday, Donald. And you know what? You know, Donald wants to basically, every time he puts a new law in place, he wants to get rid of, 5 or 6 or whatever other regulations. I can't remember the number that he uses. But the point is, why don't we do that with prisoners? Why don't we, for every person we put in prison, we release, 5 political prisoners? So then the freedom-loving people can be released, and, people like Hillary and Hunter and Joe and Anthony Fauci should be on top of the list. These people should be in prison, pardon the pun, never to see the light of day. Not literally, but figuratively. We need to lock these people up. They're flat-out criminals. Thomas Haviland with us. He's a retired United States Air Force professional. He's done a bunch of things, though, and the reason I'm hesitating is because he's not only been in the Air Force, but he's also done all kinds of other different things. Now he's turned his heart and mind towards this vaccine issue. Blood clot studies, he's done 3 of them. This unusual clotting seems to be very closely linked to the rollout and continued use of the COVID vaccine, people. And so here's the deal. We see these blood clots in the dead people, and it's of serious concern. But now we've researched it and pointed it to the people that are living. If it affects the dead people's blood, and you can see it in research, what about people that are living? How does it affect our blood and what's going on? At the end of the last hour, I talked about the eugenics movement, and that's where I think this really relates. This is not a vaccine. This is a gene therapy. Let's start there, Tom.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think you're right. We knew very little about this whole technology when it got rolled out to the whole world. I think 5.5 billion people with a B on the planet took at least one of these shots out of the 8 billion people. So 2/3 of the planet have taken at least one of the COVID shots. And I think a total of 13 billion doses with a B have been distributed, most of those in the years 2021 and 2022. There's been a great tapering off in the last few years because people realized that the shots weren't working. They were catching COVID and transmitting it anyways. And a lot of people started hearing about these nasty side effects, turbo cancers, miscarriages, nerve damage, myocarditis, and, of course, these fibrous clots and microclots.
Where do we go from here? How's this going to affect the living? I've mentioned words like, hey, it's the eugenics movement going on. We've heard research from Bill Gates and many others that they want to use vaccines for population control / reduction. We hear, I've mentioned this is kind of a Frankenstein blood clotting scenario of what it'll do, that it crosses the blood-brain barrier, that it transmits through mother's milk, that it literally specifically targets your ability to procreate. We look at all this kind of stuff and we say, okay, in my mind, what they've done is they've kind of fired the first shot around the world and said, hey, we're taking off the gloves now. We're attacking the human race. And this is chemical warfare. And they've got these mRNA, they call them vaccines, but they're really, eugenics movement gene therapies. And the question becomes, have they now set the stage in the blood for what's to come next? And it's hard for me to predict what comes next, but they've talked about this disease X. And X just stands for, we don't know what it is, we don't know when, we don't know how, but we believe it will be. And X will turn into the next round of the kill shot. And I don't know if they're going to just do it in little teeny stages. I don't know if they're going to all of a sudden have a big blow up and and COVID was round one, and now we're going to have round two and shut down society and do all these things. I mean, I don't know how they're strategically going to position this, but I guess my question is, what do you think about this idea that they've set the stage in the bloodstream and in the blood supply, and now they're going to continue their therapies on top of that? Tom?
Yeah, I think you're right on the money, Sam. I think they've already set the stage with the COVID shots. In addition to all the side effects I mentioned earlier, probably the most important one is the fact that it has created autoimmunity in people, right? It has the body attacking itself. And so people's immune systems have been very, very much damaged in those that have taken the vaccines. And it's really set the stage for not just COVID in the future, but for other diseases to be able to come in and more easily defeat your body because you have a weakened immune system. What really is aggravating for me is I sent the results of my embalmer blood clot surveys all 3 years that I've done them to the FDA and CDC and NIH. Haven't heard a peep. Several weeks ago, I sent the results of Dr. Kevin McCarran's latest determination of the prion infectious nature of the spike protein from both the virus and the vaccine and damaging good proteins around it to Bobby Kennedy and Jay Bhattacharya at HHS and NIH. Haven't heard anything from them yet on this either. And it's frustrating, right? Because
do you think, Dr. Bradley, do you think Bobby Kennedy's cell phone's down or something? What do you think's happening?
Well, I know I think his priorities are a little mixed up right now, and he's looking at other things. Right now, I'm not saying the autism thing is like I said, they're important issues as well. But nothing to me seems to be more important than these damaging vaccines that I think need to be taken off the shelves immediately. I mean, when you're digging yourself into a hole, the first thing you got to do is stop digging. So we got to stop getting more of these shots into the arms of people. And I think Mary Talley Bowden, a doctor out there, said that I believe in the 2025 version of the vaccine, 9 million kids from 0 to 7. So, I think it was about 1 million 0 to 4-year-olds and about 8 million 5 to 17-year-olds have taken the shots. You still there?
Dr. Bradley, that's not going to go well, sir.
No. I mean, here they're infecting, they're destroying the next generation. I mean, these are the gifts from God of our own children and grandchildren. And locally, we tried really hard to stave off this avalanche of stupidity that happened during the time this was being made available. They opened up our high schools as a clinic, basically. They had people not literally lined up around the block, but literally people were lining up to bring their little kids in, and the way the CDC, NIH, and everybody recommended, oh yeah, give it to a 6-month-old kid. Are you kidding me? We're taking these pure, innocent, sweet, untainted little bodies and spirits, and we're polluting them. This is a diabolical process. And like I say, I heard advertisements this week saying when you get your flu shot, get your COVID shot, and so they're not walking away from it. They're doubling down on it.
Yeah,
I really do think,
and you would hope that if Donald Trump is for the truth and Bobby Kennedy's for the truth, and Fauci, you would hope they'd have a sea change and say, hold on a minute, But if they don't, at some point. It's one thing if you were mistaken. It's another thing to say, I want to cover this up, but I want to be responsible for it. It's another thing to let it go unabated and have it grow. And that's why I really pointed out this eugenics movement. Hey, we jettisoned Hitler because he was kind of exposed about this. All we did, though, was partner with Hitler in the beginning. Then when Hitler got too hot, we jettisoned Hitler. We took the eugenics programs underground. And you're seeing the rise of the eugenics agenda today. And many are saying that they're going to create a superhuman race and then a dumbed down rest of us. Others are saying it's population control. I don't know what it is, but none of it turns us to God, Dr. Bradley.
No, you're absolutely correct. The eugenics movement was another diabolical process. I believe personally that it's kind of like diversity and being able to set up investment schemes, whether you're putting some in gold and some in stocks and some in land and so on. I believe that there's multiple processes by which this diabolical effort to destroy humanity is going forward. I think the clot shot, I think, plays a big role in it too. The eugenics thing. I think that there are other processes from other vaccines and from other environmental toxins that are out there in our food sources, in our water, in our air. I mean, there are so many diversified efforts that you say, "Oh, we focus on one, we're gonna fix this." No, we're not.
No,
it's
not even
it's
close.
Kind of like,
and so the government used to be about the protection of life, liberty, and property, and now my question left is, hey, what's the next psyop the government's going to do on us? Does it have to do with the vaccines and our health? Does it have to do with terrorism and lies about who's for what? Does it have to do with the next war? Where are we headed with all this stuff? And I'm convinced they've laid the groundwork. And so here's the question for you, Tom. Are you autistic?
No, I'm not autistic.
Okay, but you will be if they have their way soon, sir. Now, I
well,
know
at
it's
least
a joke
the coming
a little
generation.
bit. I know it's a joke, but I'm being serious though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me read to you.
And if we can't get you,
we
can't get you, Tom, we'll get your kids. Okay?
Oh man, I know. These shots have already. So many people have died and suffered from these. I ran a survey last year. Let me read to you just a few quotes from some people in a survey I ran last year. It was called the 2024 People's Blood Clot Survey. I tried to run one, first of all, with vascular surgeons and endovascular specialists and cardiologists that work in what's called cath labs across the United States that remove clots from living people. I sent the survey to all the societies for vascular surgery around the world in the U.S., Canada, Australia, UK, etc., and I only got one response, and nobody responded except for this one, which was the U.S. Society for Vascular Surgery. They're headquartered in Rosemont, Illinois, and they brag on having over 6,300 members, but they refused to take my survey, which was a shame. So I decided, if I can't get good information from the doctor in, maybe I can get it from the patient in. So I ran a similar survey that I had Dr. John Campbell, famous YouTuber, advertise on his YouTube channel, along with Clayton Morris from Redacted News. And would you believe, gentlemen, I got over 1,400 responses in just a couple of weeks. So from patients.
And hold on, what's this study called again? It's the patient.
It's the 2024 People's Blood Clot Survey. And if
Okay,
you go
got
to
it. Go
Laura
ahead.
Kasner or Substack.com, you can see an article, and you can still actually take the survey if you want to. It's still open if you want to take it. So it's for people who've had blood clotting issues since January of 2020, because I wanted to capture the year that we had the COVID but no vaccine yet, and then all the subsequent years where we had both COVID and the vaccines. But at the end of that survey, we allow people to be able to talk about their situation if they want to. Let me read to you, gentlemen, just three of these quotes from people suffering right now from this or have had loved ones died. Here's the first one. My mother had 3 COVID vaccines, all Pfizer vaccines. She was healthy and had a stroke and coded in the hospital and died within 5 days. The funeral director is a good friend of the family's and informed us and showed us the white fibrous clots that were throughout her body. He told us they were seeing a lot of these types of clots while embalming. Here's another one from a lady inside the system, a nurse. Surgical nurse, seeing a huge increase in clots. We are doing more amputations than I've seen in my whole career. I'm definitely seeing the clots you're describing. When I say it's probably due to the COVID shot, everyone ignores me and there's silence in the operating room. I also hear the surgeons saying, I've never seen anything like this before. Also, during heart surgeries, the surgeons are having a difficult time suturing as the tissues are just falling apart. Once again, the surgeons are saying, I've never seen anything like this before. A lot of patients are dying. Let me read one more to you here, then I'll have you gentlemen comment.
Well, when you get done with that, I want to ask you about an association that might be supportive, but go ahead with your things.
Okay, here's the last one. The last one, I was feeling fine. Had pain left side below shoulder blade. Started sweating and feeling weak. Called the ambulance. ECG did not show heart attack. Rushed to emergency. ECG did not show heart attack. Third different emergency. Doctor did ECG and an ultrasound. They were all perplexed. A cardiologist was called. I was sent to a heart institute. Arriving there, I went into cardiac arrest. Was out 2 minutes. 3 sets of compressions and 4 defibrillator shocks used. They went in through an artery at the wrist. They removed fibrous clot. They did not want to tell me, but a nurse whispered to me, it's the vaccine. We have so many. follow-up appointment with cardiologist. I asked the question directly. The doctor looked down and said, I cannot talk about it at the risk of losing my job. What do you think about that, Sam and Dr. Scott?
Doctor, you can go first.
Well, I absolutely, all of these things we've had personal experience with these kind of things too. But let me just bring up an association. Maybe you've already contacted them. I spoke at their national convention here a while back. The Association of American Physicians and Surgeons. These are independent-minded, non-AMA kinds of physicians and surgeons. They have a kind of a freedom bent to them that if these guys were contacted by your group and you got them to examine maybe some of their practices, and maybe there's some areas of focus. Vascular, for example, would be a natural, it would seem, but they would be pediatric and everything else that you could say. I don't know. There's certainly somebody that if you haven't already contacted them, like I say, I was well received with my freedom message at their national convention, and Jane Orient has been historically one of the leadership there. And Sam, you and I both had
Jane
some
Orient
interaction
is
with
spot
Jane.
on, and she's right, and she does some incredible research. Have you reached out to Dr. Jane Orient?
And the Association of American Physicians and Surgeons.
No, and thank you, Dr. Scott. I will do so because I'm looking for any organization that will take this on. There is one good shining light here. Mr. Taylor Moore, who's the president of the Tennessee Funeral Directors Association, has invited me to come speak at their annual conference just south of Nashville in a couple months here on June 8th. So they're recognizing the embalmers are, since we're now 4 years into this, they see this is not going away. So embalmer and funeral director associations around the country are starting to recognize that this is a thing, and they want to talk about it. They want to bring it out in the open now. So the dam is starting to break. So that's a good thing.
Excellent. Well, it needs to have more voices. It needs to have a bigger megaphone, if you want to think of it that way. Because honestly, if we continue along this path, there are many other diverse methodologies, I think, that the assault is going on against humanity. But this is, in my opinion, a huge aspect. And it got such a full court press 5 years ago. By the way, in March of 2020, early March, first week of March of 2020, I was asked to do an on-camera interview with the largest media outlet in the state of Utah. I gave them 28 minutes of on-camera interview. They had a 6-minute segment they were going to do on this quote-unquote epidemic. Though at that point, there hadn't even been one Utahn that died of it, even in they're all phony baloney things. But anyway, 28-minute interview, and they used 9 seconds of my interview because they did not want this. From the very beginning, the major media outlets have been absolutely, it's like they're bought and paid for. They're going to silence this. So any way we can get light on this subject, it'll be challenging, but I think it's got to happen.
Amen to that.
Did you say
Dr.
9
Jane,
seconds?
9 seconds of a 28-minute interview.
Oh,
It was absolutely appalling.
Amen. They can't shut down the truth unless they manipulate to that level, and that's why these long-form radio programs that we do are so critical. It's not about me. It's about the guest. It's about the education. It's about the knowledge that gets brought to the table. Dr. Jane Orient with the Association of American Physicians and Surgeons is somebody really that you ought to work with. She does videos like this. This is a headline. Investigating vaccines, the rules of evidence. Okay, so she's for real. She will not back away. She will tell the truth. I've had her on several times. So has Dr. Bradley on shows that he's done separately. And we've got to start getting the right people involved here. Have you also talked to the health ranger?
We actually bounced off the work of the health ranger, Mike Adams. He was the very first one back in 2022 that did the ICP-MS analysis that actually showed the elemental breakdown of the clots. Yes. And Greg Harrison's team actually sent the embalmer's clots out to 2 separate labs, and they came back and verified that Mike was absolutely right in the elemental breakdown that he first did back in 2022. So that corroborated Mike's findings, and like I said, the very little amount of normal blood components like potassium, magnesium, and iron were found in the white fibrous clots. However, there was large amounts of phosphorus and sulfur found in them.
So does Mike know? Does Mike know about the living portion of your research now?
He probably does if he's been watching. I've been interviewing a lot of people over the last couple of years. My guess is that Mike is aware of it by now, that these are in the living as well.
All right, there you have it, Doctor. I don't know where to go with this, because it just seems to me that, look, we have a real, what do they call that, an Overton window? We have a really small time slice by which we might be able to arrest the continued infecting of the blood supply. We might be able to basically turn this thing around and expose it to the point where, hey, they get stopped in their tracks. We may not stop it, but we could delay it and minimize it substantially. I mean, it's already off and rolling, but, man, if nothing happens, you ain't seen nothing yet, people. I'm telling you right now.
Well, that's Dr. Scott McCarran, by the way, Dr. Kevin McCarran, the neuroscientist over in Japan that did the RT quick test showing that these things have a prion nature to them. He's also right now trying to work on some solutions, seeing if there's anything that he can do to actually inhibit the prionic white fibrous clot material from infecting that drop of his own blood plasma that he puts on the edge of the plate. So he's actually going, and what's bad about this gentleman is every time he runs his RT quick test, it costs about $5,000 to run this test. And he's doing it out of his own pocket and from some donations of people that are supporting him. Think about this. The FDA, the CDC, university labs, they have millions, hundreds of millions of dollars to be able to perform this research themselves, but they're not doing it. So it falls upon this small ragtag team, and this guy's a great neuroscientist. He's been involved in this, profession for the last 10, 15 years. So he knows what he's doing. But it's just a shame that, he has to beg for resources to perform a test that these FDA, CDC, regulatory agencies, and labs all around the world in these universities should be able to do with a pittance of their money.
Well, this agency capture is a huge problem where the big pharma companies, they pay for the research, they've bought their way into the middle of the CDC and the NIH and everything else like that. It's really a diabolical process. I've said that many times. But what you mentioned something that to me seems like there should be a real focused energy on this. Number one, how do you prevent the infection by these, tainted blood, samples? And then how do you turn back? How do you basically cure the disease that has been inflicted upon us? And so, I think that your evidence that you've brought forth is pretty compelling that, yeah, it's there, it's caused by this. Now, how do we deflect it out of how does the next generation propagate itself? I saw a study the other day that Japan right now, and it's not all attributable to anything that we've been talking about, but it's their propensity to not have children in Japan. They're 3 generations away from extinction as a people because of their, that's just the nature. We don't want kids. Why bring them along? We need the financial means, whatever. But people make their decisions based on that. When you add this into mix, it may accelerate and cause
cultures you can't say
to be
it may accelerate. It will absolutely accelerate because instead of being able to have your agency and choose whether you want to have children or not, now people have been duped into not having children. I get it. But this is going to force the issue because you won't be able to have children.
Right,
and you think the first round has stopped you from procreating. You wait till the second and third rounds, now that they've laid down the base of the tainted blood supply, you wait and see. It'll be almost impossible to have children going forward if these clowns have their way. They're satanic, they're Luciferian, and they want you and your children. They want to destroy the human race. They think they're lords of the universe. It's the modern-day vaccine, mRNA, whatever you want to call it, Tower of Babel. It's Babel. It's crazy, folks. But that's what they want to do. They want to position themselves above God, and they believe that they can create a manufactured human race, put Elon Musk into it, and it'll even get more strange, right, with some of the work that he's doing. Hang tight, folks. We've got discussions to happen on your radio.
How would you like to help this program reach more people and earn silver at the same time? Call or text 801-669-2211 for complete details.
News this hour from townhall.com. I'm Rich Thomason. Roughly 10,000 pages of records relating to the 1968 assassination of Senator Robert F. Kennedy have been released. It continues a disclosure of national secrets ordered by President Trump. National Intelligence Director Tulsi Gabbard says the RFK files release will shine a long overdue light on the truth. New York City and its suburbs, scene of one of the latest illegal immigration crackdowns.
Authorities say 206 illegal immigrants with criminal records have been arrested in the New York City area by ICE agents. The arrest focused on the Big Apple, Long Island, and the lower Hudson Valley during an enhanced operation from April 6th through the 12th. ICE officials say more than half of those apprehended had significant criminal convictions or are currently facing charges for serious crimes such as murder and assault, and some were gang members. New York City Mayor Eric Adams backed the arrest. Tasha Stevens reporting.
President Trump is unloading on Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell.
When it comes to his feelings about the man running the nation's central bank, the president isn't holding back.
I don't think he's doing the job. He's too late, always too late, a little slow, and I'm not happy with him.
Donald Trump is upset with Fed Chairman Jerome Powell for not aggressively cutting interest rates. He's threatening to fire Powell, saying if I want him out, he'll be out of there real fast. Greg Clugston, Washington.
The 20-year-old accused of a deadly shooting at Florida State University, Tallahassee, is the son of a sheriff's deputy. 2 people were killed, 6 others injured in yesterday's attack. The suspect, Phoenix Eichner, was shot and wounded by police. They responded to the scene outside the student union. No trading today on Wall Street as the U.S. financial markets are closed in observance of Good Friday. More on these stories at townhall.com.
They told us nothing but lies.
These timeshare thieves out there are terrible.
They bullied us.
It was a nightmare. We felt stuck.
Our timeshare is all a scam.
They stole from us. They were thieves.
I was completely taken advantage of.
Hello, I'm Chuck McDowell, founder and CEO of Wesley Financial Group, and I know the tough spot you're in. Are you asking yourself, why did I buy that timeshare? I'll tell you why, because that presentation wasn't a normal sales pitch. It was a show to convince you that timeshare is a great investment. They told you it was available today and today only. They said you're foolish if you don't buy, and unfortunately, you believed them. We get over 3,000 complaints a week from folks just like you that were misled into buying a timeshare. Give us a call. I guarantee if we take you as a client, we will cancel your timeshare or you'll pay nothing.
Call now for your free information kit. 800-989-1771. 800-989-1771. 800-989-1771.
This April 19th, you're invited to a powerful celebration of American courage and independence. Join the Utah Society Sons of the American Revolution for a special event honoring the shot heard round the world, the moment that launched a revolution. Gather with us at the Utah State Capitol from 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. for a morning of inspiration, remembrance, and patriotic pride. Experience a ceremonial wreath-laying, hear live readings and historic reflections, and witness a black powder musket salute that echoes the bravery of our forefathers. Whether you're a student of history, a proud patriot, or just looking for a meaningful way to honor the past, this event is for you. Admission is free and all are welcome. Come celebrate the spirit of 1775 and the birth of American freedom. Visit UtahSocietySAR.org for full details. Let freedom ring. April 19th at the Capitol.
Looking for an IT partner that truly understands your needs? Managed IT Services is the answer. We meet with you regularly to discuss your goals and form a tailored technology plan. Our customers have called us a trusted advisor who delivers. When it comes to IT, we do it all. Firewalls, cloud storage, server migration, and more. Say goodbye to long-term contracts and hello to a team that earns your business month after month. Call 801-706-6980 now and let Managed IT Services transform your IT experience.
Have you ever had great honey? No, I mean really good, all-natural, raw honey? Well, now you can, thanks to localhoneyman.com. We can ship out our locally made honey all across the U.S. So don't worry, you won't miss out. Plus, Local Honeyman has so many different flavors, like Utah Wildflower, High Desert Delight, Happy Valley, and Blackberry, just to name a few. So purchase your delicious raw honey today at localhoneyman.com.
Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty Roundtable Radio Talk Show.
All right, back with you live, ladies and gentlemen. Tom Haviland, Dr. Scott Bradley, yours truly, talking about these research surveys that have been done about vaccines and COVID and the clots and all these things that are happening to people. And I'm just telling you right now, they've tainted the blood supply. So do we have any way to know, Tom, how far along we are in this? Meaning, we are saying the blood supply could get tampered with. We're saying that, the sewers have this stuff in it, and eventually that gets into the dirt and the soil, and eventually that gets into your crops, and eventually you eat, Do we know how far along this is? Is there any way if we woke everybody up tomorrow that we could stop it? Or is it already, the horse is out of the barn already?
It's hard to determine, Sam, because as I said, when I tried to run a survey last fall with the vascular surgery societies all over the world, they refused to take my survey. We could have got some indication there of what percentage of their patients have these white fibrous clots in them and microclotting and these indications of this prionic infectious type blood. But they refused to answer the survey. We do have a few hints. Like I said, from the embalmers, we know that 27% of the corpses in my latest survey in 2024 had the white fibrous clots in them. 22% had the microclotting, what they call dirty blood or coffee grounds in the blood, which is an indication of microclotting and this prionic phenomenon. So we have an indication of what it is in the dead. Now, can you say that that's the percentage that's in the living? Not necessarily. But even if it's only like 5%, 5% of America are 330 million Americans. That's like 15 million Americans.
And hold on. And if you let people continue to take the jab unabated, that number continues to rise, right?
Correct. Absolutely correct. So, like I said, the FDA, the CDC, they need to recognize there is a problem. They've had to at least make that first step before then they start to look at solutions. We can't even get them to start looking at solutions because they haven't even admitted there's a problem yet.
And that is the problem. Dr. Bradley did a presentation called the Fauci Facade. Really, are we going to be able to arrest Anthony Fauci and hold him accountable for his crimes? He literally lied and said, hey, this thing came from kind of a meat market or whatever. And then we said, no, we think it came from a lab. And he went, no, you guys are off your rock crazy. How dare you? Who are you? You're not a doctor. You're not following the science. And he lied, and then it got all exposed. And he got caught literally in a criminal lie. And so now are we going to, Rand Paul is the biggest guy trying to get accountability for Fauci, but nobody else seems to be listening. They've all got their, car keys in their ears like a bunch of rednecks. No one will listen. Tom, you first, then Dr. Bradley. Do you think we're going to have accountability? Because that's where really the solutions or the change starts, right? By creating accountability and saying, hey, these people are criminal. These people were misguided, whatever the case may be. Nuremberg modern day trials. Let's move forward. But until you get that done, if you don't even acknowledge there's a problem and you continue to allow the vaccine to just float around society, and the problem gets worse every single day. Tom first.
Yeah, Sam, I'm skeptical like you are, because even in their own report, Brad Winstrup, who's a representative here from the state of Ohio, he was the chair for the congressional group that took a look at the whole COVID situation, not just the vaccines, but also the lockdowns and stuff. One of the comments they made in that document, even though they did criticize the whole response to the pandemic, one of the comments they made in there was that, the the shots are so safe and effective, and they've saved so many lives. It's just like, what are you talking about? They haven't proved anything. Like they've never proven that they've saved a single life. And we've seen all kinds of documentation out there showing the harm that's been created by the vaccines and the ineffectiveness of the vaccines. So that leads me to believe that if they can't even admit that the shots were not working, that they're actually injurious as opposed to being efficacious, then I have little hope that they're going to bring people like Anthony Fauci to justice.
Yeah, in past history, when they've had vaccines that have gone wrong, they've pulled them off the market and they've said, hold on, wait a minute. Okay, all we're asking to start is to do that again, right? Say, listen, there's too many problems with these vaccines. Call a halt to the vaccine programs. That would tell me they're serious. Or prosecution of Fauci, or, we can go down the list. But right now, they seem to be full speed ahead. I mean, you were in the water getting ready to get pulled up by the ski boat, buddy, and they yanked your arms out of your sockets. They're so on board for this thing, Dr. Bradley.
I think the entire official narrative from the very beginning has been plainly and clearly Bravo Sierra. And, you look at Fauci, and his organization helped fund the initial studies on this out of North Carolina, shipped it overseas when it got too hot to handle, and then the whole release and everything else like that. I think that the more we hear about this, the more the population should be up in arms. And here's where I'm coming from. There's a guy named John Quincy Adams. He was son of John and Abigail Adams. He was born and bred to statesmanship and diplomacy and everything. And he was a slavery abolitionist before the term even was coined. It looked like an overwhelming job to rid the nation of that plague of slavery. And yet and still, he was dedicated and devoted to that. And every letter he signed this was his sign-off, like sincerely. Instead of that, it was, the duty is ours, the results are God's. And I'm truly convinced that we, the people in this nation, that's where it all boils down to. You can say somebody's a president or a congressman or a senator or a judge or blah, 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 when in essence our own liberty is always in the hands of the people. And unless and until the people begin to understand that they have that responsibility to maintain that eternal vigilance of liberty, we're going to continue to get the same kind of Bravo Sierra, not only in this case, but everything else. So here's what I'm saying. The educational process is key to this. If we, the people, become basically up in arms about this, and I hope we don't ever come to that point, but I'm saying that we, the people, need to be informed. Tom's work is, he's got a firm foundation to stand on in terms of the science and everything.
And that's why I tell Tom, whenever he has any adjustment or any update or anything else, call me, because we will cover it.
Well, and absolutely. And I think the voice needs to grow bigger and bigger. In days gone by, there were like 6 corporations that controlled all of the media outlets for everything. It was completely contained. You got the same story no matter where you went. But there's a lot of other alternative methodologies now to get things out. And those voices are growing. And in fact, they're maybe getting a little more preeminence in terms of even the official taglines that are going out. So I believe that through relentless efforts to bring the truth forward, if enough people become informed, now we get the kind of government and the outcomes that we deserve. I firmly believe that too. And if we choose a path of head in the sand, cover me with a rock, I don't care to know about this, we're going to continue to get the same Bravo Sierra. But as Americans, we have the duty, we have the responsibility. That's what the First Amendment's about, not just religion, but speech and press and assembly. And being able to,
I agree that it can be done,
out.
And we have the seeds to make that occur. The question is, will the people do it? And I don't know. Let me give you an example to make the point. I believe autism is a serious problem too, and I believe the vaccines are partially responsible for it. I think that there's environmental factors that are partially responsible for it. We can go on and on and on. But let me give you this example. RFK-Jr. right now, doing a good job in my opinion, wants to do an autism what they call toxin probe. So an autism toxin probe. But it ignites deep divide among parents. Acceptance or cure is the question. Candace Hathaway over at The Blaze has this piece. But the upshot of this is Health and Human Services Secretary RFK Jr. stated on Wednesday that the agency plans to study environmental factors that could be linked to the spike in autism. And his announcement, believe it or not, ignited a fierce clash on social media. Some of the parents want to discover the cause and get to the bottom of it and say it's harmed their family. Others are literally saying, F you, man. Our kids are fine. Yeah, so Johnny's autistic, but he's really smart. He this, he that, he whatever. During a Wednesday's press conference, Kennedy shared autism statistics, warning that it's increasing in relevance at an alarming rate and precedence. The autism spectrum disorder is now for 18-year-olds 1 in 31. Okay, referring to a study about children that are born in 2014. Kennedy explained that there's an extreme risk for American boys, specifically stating that they had, listen, 1 in 20 chance of being diagnosed, and in California, of all places, it's 1 in 12.5. He highlighted the upward trend here in severe case and talked about severe cases. Listen, about 25% of the kids who are diagnosed with severe autism, go ahead and skip the break, believe it or not, can't even be potty trained because it's so severe. He wisely and rightly called out the media denial on this thing, the epidemic denial in the media, and telling Americans we've got to get a handle on this thing. The problem is now everybody's fighting. So some are like, my kid's autistic, but he's fine. Don't act like he's a bad guy. How dare you, Bobby? And others are like, no, we want to get to the bottom of this. This is very harmful. Obviously, he says there are people who don't want us to look at environmental exposures. We know there's got to be some of this. He says genes don't cause epidemics. And my response is, unless you do gene therapy, Tom.
Wow. Sam, that was a force of nature you just talked about there. And I think that when he says that he's going to take a look at environmental reasons for autism, I don't think he's ruling out the vaccines. A lot of people think
I agree. I don't think he is
environmental.
Either.
They thought he was just talking about toxins in the environment, in the food, in the water, in the soil. But I believe he's also talking about the vaccines as a toxin too, as an environmental cause. Anything outside the body, could be, because you balance
Agreed, 100%.
that against anything genetic in nature. Is it genetic? Is it environmental, including vaccines? And I'm a firm believer that it's vaccine related, because it's pretty obvious there was an explosion of autism, and it all started in 1989 when there was an explosion in the childhood vaccine schedule. And I think those two are very closely linked. I know correlation is not necessarily causation, but boy, that's an awful big coincidence.
Dr. Bradley, I agree with Bobby Kennedy on this, and I think we ought to look at the other environmental factors. I don't think it's only vaccines. I think we ought to look at all of it. My point to bring this up, though, was to let you know how bad it's getting. 1 in 12.5 boys in California. I mean, that is insanity. And now you've got this COVID. They've tainted the blood supply discussion on top of it all. And you go, man. And then you say, okay, well, Bobby's trying to get to the bottom of it. Who in their right mind wouldn't want answers on this? But you've got the whole autism community now, half of it rioting against Bobby Kennedy, going, how dare you attack our children like this? It's like, what is going on? Dr. Bradley?
It's the whole science is settled mentality that has been bred into the American thing. There was no science in the COVID con. Okay, none. If they had a test tube and a Bunsen burner in the lab, it's an anomaly. It's probably in the back closet. So this idea of science is settled, we don't want to stir the pot, blah, blah, blah. There are people that have skin in the game that they know that if they get exposed, there will be a literal hell to pay. And that is the problem with this. I've been tracking this very closely for quite a long time, years. And the fact of the matter is that and in recent times even, I've from all the different news sources I examine information from all around the world, there are these people that have skin in the game, these researchers that should have found the causation, and the people that are paying for the research and everything. They're coming out of the woodwork and being on the little discussion things from podcasts to big lame brain mainstream media, And they're out there saying, no, this is settled science, blah, blah, blah. Well, you know what? If you have the truth, you should not be the slightest bit concerned about a thorough investigation. Now, Bobby Kennedy says he's going to use hundreds of scientists from around the world to look at this. And I think there's some hope that they'll get to the truth then, because American scientists are bought and paid for by the pharma companies. And I think there's pretty good evidence of that. But with other scientists from around the world where honesty has not already been compromised, we may come up with something. But you're absolutely right. I have not seen one single solitary supportive newscast about this thing. The only one speaking in favor of it is Bobby Kennedy. I've listened to his public announcements. He does definitely include the vaccines in his litany of potential causal effects. And so I'm with you guys. I look at my generation, for example. I'm older than Bobby Kennedy, and he's used numbers like 1 in 10,000 in his generation, and some have said 1 in 1,500. I think let's compromise and say 1 in 2,500 had autistic spectrum kinds of stuff in my generation. And you can argue about that, and they say, oh, we've got better investigative things. We're more sensitive to it, watching for it. That's a sliver of it, literally.
Well, yeah, maybe partially true, but that isn't the point for sure. Let me give you the last point that Bobby Kennedy made, and this is where everybody's just rioting and going crazy. But I think this really hammers home the point that you and I were talking about fertility and the ability to deal with, children and procreation and having families. And, families, the fundamentally of society that they're directly attacking over this right now. Anything God, family, or country-oriented, they attack relentlessly. But here's what he says. Autism destroys families. But more importantly, it destroys our greatest resource, which is our children. These are children who should not be suffering like this. They were doing fine, and then some environmental toxin or something got a hold of them. They went autistic around 2 years old. He says this is a serious problem. And then he says this. These are kids who will never pay taxes. They'll never hold a job. They'll never play baseball. They'll never write a poem. They'll never go out on a date. Sadly, many of them will never even use a toilet unassisted. He says we've got to recognize that we're doing this to our children. I couldn't agree more, Tom.
Yeah, Sam. And to me, the one common thread is vaccines, whether they're childhood vaccines. Like I said, when I was a kid, I think I took 3 or 4 vaccines as a child. And I was born in 1960. Today, it's 72 vaccines on the schedule, and even more now since you're expected to get COVID vaccines along the way.
Yeah, and you got to get a vaccine, too, so you don't get cervical cancer. You got to have a sex, component vaccine, too, just to mock the little girls.
Yeah, how do you go from 3 or 4 shots to 72 by the time you're 18 years old? I think it's ridiculous. God created our bodies just fine. I think that we should honor that and dial way back on these vaccines. I know friends who actually they're going cold turkey. They're not going to give their kids any vaccines of any type. I don't blame them.
I've got 8 children. I haven't vaccinated them. Well, they actually have been vaccinated because they were nursed and they have mother's milk natural immunities. But other than that, that plus life prepares them just fine, sir.
This natural immunity thing has been totally discounted, and it was a system.
But it's totally valid, though.
It is, but the T cells and how they generate and this response of the human body, we have been around. Argument. There's a lot of people have an argument how long that's been, but for somehow and some reason we have survived to this particular point. And we have thrived as humans. And the fact is now that there's some anomaly that's come up that has caused us to crater in many ways. And we've violated a natural response to how we deal with life. And we're intervening. We think we're God. Now, this goes along, Sam, we talk a lot about this, and Tom doesn't need to get in the middle of this conversation if he doesn't want. But I always say, get your kids out of the indoctrination centers where they're being taught a godless philosophy that's basically a faith-based system without a God in it, where we learn the wisdom and understanding of man. And we have become indoctrinated in looking for solutions that the wisdom of man has come up with, and you know how stable that is. It never changes.
Yeah, it's like modern-day Tower of Babel, getting above God, right?
It is, and we've removed God. I remember daily opening prayers in our public education, and we expunged God. I mean, about the time Tom was born, the Supreme Court decided God, the source of all knowledge, couldn't be in our school system. This is an example again of some things that are being promoted. It's a multifaceted assault on everything that we have held traditional values in. And the religiosity, the belief in divine God and all those kind of things are being expunged from our society. We're turning to false approaches to address the challenges that we've created, and now we're creating solutions to them that are equally vexing, like this jab. That is absolutely, it could assist and direct us into an extinction point almost as humanity. I mean, it's step by step. They're going to take it, man. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of different facets of this, and we need to consider going back to our traditional value that's, how shall I say, tried and proven to be successful. And we're just getting farther from that. So, but getting back to my point, I think with enough education in traditional godly kinds of things, we can win. I think we can win, and I think Fauci could actually go to prison before he dies.
And I hope and pray you're right. Tom, do you want to get in the middle of this one?
Just to say amen to that, my wife and I recognized this years ago, and we actually raised our 3 kids. We homeschooled all 3 of them using a Christian system called Alpha Omega, and it worked out just fine for them. They all scored in the high 90th percentiles in their ACT and SAT test for college. So,
and the problem with college, though, is the high priests of the humanism are teaching that. And I think that, I understand if you're going to go be a professional engineer or something, you got to do that. But the problem is that very often we unseat the true values, attitudes, and beliefs that were God ordained millennia ago when we send them to these institutions that are designed, I think, to unseat those values.
Amen, Dr. Scott. I think you're right. They're indoctrination centers. We warned all 3 of our kids about that. But it's hard because they're bombarded with it every day.
Yeah,
you're right about that. So first we need to have accountability for Fauci and put that sucker in prison. You've got a senator taking the lead on it, Rand Paul. I believe if he gets the chance, he'll get it done. We got to educate and push and get our congressmen and senators on board to help with that cause. Secondarily, though, we need to pull the vaccines off the market, folks. We need to simply say, hey, man, these things, not only the COVID vaccine, but I mean all of these vaccines and stuff like that, we've got to yank them off the market and then look into environmental factors on top of that. Bobby Kennedy's right. But until those things are done, I just feel like, hey, it's going to be a tough row. Now, that doesn't mean we give up, okay? It's kind of like the gospel of Jesus Christ. Just because some people don't choose to embrace the gospel, that doesn't mean I never stop sharing it. I promote Christ and the atonement. And by the way, I went and saw The Chosen last night. The last 3 episodes of the latest season, incredible. I digress, but I'm just telling you. So I get that we never give up. We never stop. We educate. We do our very best. We vote. We do all within our ability to bring appropriate things before Congress to get accountability and start investigations. And we always, stand for the right. I get it. So we'll never give up. Don't misunderstand me. But I'm just still so jaded from what I've seen to where I just kind of feel like even Trump hasn't even stopped his vaccine. He's never said, hey, I kind of think differently on this now. Not once. And so that scares me. Final word to you, Tom.
I'm just going to latch on to what you said there, Sam. I agree wholeheartedly. Even if our politicians fail us, and until they do succeed for us, you still have the power as an individual. You can say the most powerful word in the world, no, to these vaccines. Don't take them.
Dr. Bradley?
Well, and that absolutely is counsel. And if our police officers recognized that if they didn't enforce this, as we say, Bravo Sierra, across the way, sooner or later, everybody, that happened in Tanzania, by the way, they would not enforce the mandates, and the people went without the mandates, and they had the lowest death rate in the whole world because they turned their back on what was foisted upon us as a COVID con. So
and the truth
the police
shall
officers,
set you free, right?
It's true.
All right, gentlemen, thank you so much. We're flat out of time. We appreciate all that you do, ladies and gentlemen. Check out my show notes, lovingliberty.net, after the show, because that's where you'll get the link to several people. Dr. Jane Orient, you'll get the link to Tom's stuff. You'll get Dr. Scott Bradley's Fauci Facade, the whole bit. lovingliberty.net.